So I finally got some time to get back to this pile of parts. But it's going to be an even bigger pile when I'm done today. The goal at this point, strip the frame down completely so I can scrub it, wash it, and paint it. So let's get to it. You'll have to forgive the lack of a tripod today, so a few of these shots might be a little crooked. However, it's predisposed at the moment. So, next up, I'm going to pull off all the brake parts, the front fender, and the headlight mounts. Good little tip. Always take off your brake line before you remove the caliper. Makes it way easier to break loops. Whew, that's on there tight. Needs a little persuasion. I'll be damned, there's actually still some brake fluid in it. Possibly the only fluid that was left in this bike. Huh. You know, I've got an odd feeling this is the original front tire on this bike. See if I can find a date code on it somewhere. Not the first time that's happened to me. I had a 1981 RD350 LC. Really should have kept that bike. Nice bike. Completely rebuilt the engine on it. Whole bunch of work and money spent. However, that's neither here nor there. But when I got it, tires on it were hard as rocks. I did a little digging and some research, and it turned out when I bought it in 2000 and when was that? 2010, 2008, somewhere in there. It still had the original set of tires on the bike. How someone could let that happen, I don't know. It's just stupid and irresponsible. You can pick up a set of new Kenda tires, in Canada mind you, delivered to your door for a whopping $120 some odd. So why anybody would keep riding on old rubber is beyond me. It's just foolish and stupid. Seems the SD card filled up there and I didn't notice. Hopefully somehow you can still manage to follow the plot. For those of you that can't, here we are still disassembling the bike. That's one grody bracket. I think we'll leave the bracket attached to the brake line here. That way in a million months from now when projects actually get finished, I remember where it goes. If I can actually get the stupid thing back on. Nice of Suzuki to make it come off so easily. Or not. You really gotta pull the front tire off this thing to get the damn fender off? It would seem so. Alright, well then, the fender will be coming off last, since we're gonna leave it on the tires for as long as I can here. This next up, headlight mounts. Here's something that drives me absolutely mental on older motorcycle projects. People that add extraneous grounds to these bikes to make them run and work. I mean, what is this crap? You've just added it with a Tech screw into your bracket, putting holes where there shouldn't be holes, where they're just going to rust. No one's ever going to know where they are, what they are. How are you going to troubleshoot this? Just find out why you don't have a ground there, or where your frame ground has stopped working, and fix it. You should only need one, two, a couple here or there. You shouldn't need to put crap like this. I mean, look at this. They've grounded one side of the headlight bracket to the other side, and then grounded that. Well, this was on the headlight bucket. Garbage. Utter garbage. Now, back from our rant, we resume our regularly scheduled disassembly. I believe the next piece to come off on the front end here, once we get that speedo cable out of the way, probably doesn't work anyways. Brake cables are loose and away. I think we're going to take off. What are we going to take off next here? What will be the most logical progression? It doesn't really matter if we do the front or the back first. I think we'll take the front forks off here. Start with the top clamp. Why are we going to start with the top clamp? Because I feel like starting with the top clamp. This is my project. I think that's what we'll do. That seems very safe. It seems someone snapped off the bolt. You know, I'm going to show you this. Another example of why you should be so careful with projects like this, that you just don't go out and ride them like some people do. Note this side. We got a bolt that runs the full length of the triple clamp. Now normally these thread in, you don't actually have a nut on here. It appears someone's probably stripped it out and put the nut on there, but there's nothing wrong with that. You've still got a bolt running the full length. That's nice and strong. On this side, you see that someone has snapped off half this bolt, and for whatever reason didn't replace it with a longer one. So this is only biting in to about there, and that's all that's holding the top clamp on. This is your steering, people. This is dangerous garbage right here. Now we remove the dangerous garbage with a large piece of persuasion. Possibly. Yeah, you see? They snapped the end of that clean off. I mean, for God's sakes, it's a bolt. It's got to cost like what? If you went OEM, chrome from Suzuki, maybe a couple dollars? Like, that's just not worth saving money on. I mean, I'm not overly impressed with the nut and bolt arrangement on this side either. Probably should have fixed that. But, I mean, at least that was secure and served its purpose. What do we got in here? Imperial? Ugh. But of course, I suppose I shouldn't get too up in arms. There were a number of sins committed on this bike. Not to mention it has been sitting since 1988. But still, you'd think that it must have had a rough life to have this many hacks on it, having only covered, you know, a little over 10 years of riding. I mean, this was parked fairly early on in its life, all things considered. Why? I haven't quite found out yet. I mean, one of the pistons had signs of seizure on it, but it really wasn't what I consider to be all that bad. And it had been apart and put back together before. That was another one of the sins. Someone had used orange silicone on the cases to seal them together. That's a big no-no. Just inviting leaks and other garbage to occur. Okay, let's see what else we got going on here. Get our friend the clamp here off. Interestingly, this is actually the first time I've pulled the front end off a motorcycle. All my other ones have been in good enough shape I haven't had to do this yet. Nothing like going to the depths of unknown. Now we got one more clamp on the back here. Get that off. That is the beauty of motorcycles, though. They are so simple. If you're going to learn to wrench on something, bike is a great thing to learn on. Small enough to fit in your garage easily. Parts are always available, unless of course you're on some sort of weird British bike that no one makes parts for anymore. Or something really exotic like a RE5 rotary, which literally no one makes parts for anymore. The last place, I think it was called RE Recycle, just disappeared, went out of business. No one knows where all the parts went or anything like that. Community's a bit up in arms since they can't get parts anymore, which is very unfortunate. So I'd say we got one more big nut on the steering here, and that should let me take the top clamp off. Alrighty, let's grab a big honking socket. 24mm it is. Well, hello, Mr. Bond. Do you like the 22mm? Anyways. Whew. That's nice and tight. Suppose that's a good thing. Whew. Okay. Well, I suppose we'll have to go to an alternate method. Alternative means. Ain't nothing quite like air tools. Alright. Rubber caps. Some rust chunkies. And a pair of what appeared to have once been circlers. If you don't have a set of circlip pliers, I highly recommend buying them. A pair of punches or screwdrivers can work. However, these are just so much better. Of course, it does help if you have the right ones. These are for external circlers. Having now located the internal snap ring pliers, we will attempt to do this again. More than likely, still unsuccessfully. Because that's the way stuff like this usually goes for me. These are so rusty, there's a good chance they may not come out at all. This could be annoying. And it seems that my snap ring pliers are too big. Isn't that just a happy little coincidence? Can we make the external snap ring pliers do what we want? One day it will be nice to have the right tools to do these things. However, we need a screwdriver to pop that loose. Now, being very careful, as snap rings are, as YouTuber AVE has pointed out on a few occasions, magnetically attracted to eyeballs. So, be very careful. They do like to spring out and fly across rooms and whatnot. This is nicely rusted in here. Try the other one. It too is rusted in there nicely. Excellent. That's making it harder than it otherwise should have been. Try to knock this loose. 1. 2. Hopefully. Again, I'm not usually that lucky, so we'll see. There we go. Almost. But hey, 1 out of 2 ain't bad. And our prize. One triple clamp. Alright. Headlight buckets. And their beautiful grounding system. That's just such garbage, I mean. For the lower triple clamp, which actually appears to have all of its original molds on it. Of course, now that I've said that, I'm sure there'll be a whole bunch of bastardized ones, but that'll be fun for later too. Front wheel off next. The bike sitting on a jack, so the front end is off the ground. Yeah, this is definitely not a cotter pin. It may have once been a cotter pin. It is not any longer. It may prove to be nice and fun to get out. Or you just break it off. There we go. An axle nut should never need to be that tight. Oh, there we go. So here's where we're at. I've managed to get the front forks off, clamps off, and what we're fighting with now is this stubborn little bastard here. Been hitting her with a punch and a hammer and she will not come loose. So I think the next step here is going to be for me to make a wrench for this thing. It's always something. Well, after a great deal of violence and liberal application of air hammer, torch, and every other tool at my arsenal, I finally got the freaking thing off. Success. Well, I suppose the phrase best applied here is it can only get better from this point on. Although I don't really believe that. I'm sure I'll snap a bunch more bolts and find a whole bunch more crap that needs to be fixed. But we're down to the bare frame. I didn't bother recording the last 2 hours, mostly because it was 2 hours of me cursing, fighting, and beating on it, just to hit the last couple little bits and pieces off. So you didn't miss much. However, here we are. So the next step of the way is to take this outside, degrease it, scrub it, give it a light sand, just to rough up the surface a little bit, and then we'll give it a coat of paint. And from that point, we can start building it back up again. This is definitely the best part of a project, when you're finally at the frame and you're at the point where, very shortly anyway, as soon as you got a lick of paint on it, you can start building it back up again. It's so nice when it starts going back together.